You in video. Hey, we're live. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, what are you doing here, Michelle? Get out here. I'm gonna remove you. This is our auspicious beginning of our week-long foray into Facebook Live and YouTube Live, or whatever it's called at YouTube, to let you guys know about this thing we're doing. And today is not really particularly formal. In fact, it is informal, one would say. I'm just hanging, saying we're doing this kind of a dress rehearsal. It's like an open dress rehearsal is what this is. It's an open dress rehearsal. We're going to be doing quite a bit in the next few days, but today we're just making sure shit works. Pardon my French. It's we want to make sure that you as a listener can interface, that you can go to the comment section and put a comment in. So please feel free to do that. Even if you want to say, oh, I can hear you, whatever, that's all good. Put something in there. And if it comes through to my chat, then I can respond. The idea, of course, is that these informal things, the next few days, allow people to interact and have it be the next best thing to be in there. This isn't Zoom, so you can't be on the same call with me. This is a thing called StreamYard, but I still get comments. I can still get the comments both in Facebook and in YouTube. So I should be able to see them and respond to them, although I don't see any yet. And it may be just because we just started only a couple minutes into this thing. So I'm going to just chill, kind of relax here a little bit. I literally don't know if anybody is watching this or listening to this at all, so it feels kind of silly. But let me just say this. You are probably used to by now people doing marketing for various things. I know I am. When I get an email, somebody's doing a free webinar, it's like, yeah, they're marketing stuff. If I get, sign up for this free thing and we'll send you this free report or whatever, it's like, it's marketing. It's all marketing, and that's fine. People got to sell their wares. People got to do marketing. That's all good. I mean, it goes with the territory, but everybody's got to do it. And it's just not really that much of who I want to be. Recently, I did a podcast with Damon Cart about the self-concept process, and who I am, who I want to be is all part of that sort of thing. I don't mind marketing. I'm relatively good at it. People have hired me to do it for them on occasion in the past. I've written marketing ad copy for shipping companies and stuff like that. I have the ability to do that, but I don't strive for that. I don't say, oh boy, I'm going to do that now. It's like, no, what I love doing is I love teaching people how to do NLP. I love teaching people how to do hypnosis. I love teaching how to do piano, actually. I love teaching, I guess. Sleight of Mouth, hypnosis, NLP. It's where I really, find enjoyment and fulfillment. And of course, in coaching, I love doing one-on-one stuff. I love seeing people, overcoming obstacles and, blossom and bloom where they haven't before. I really like that a lot, helping them overcome limitations and beliefs that have been stopping them, which is, of course, what NLP, hypnosis, and Sleight of Mouth all do. So, the marketing part is this thing that we're doing right here. I am marketing. I'm doing this because I want you to join me in those classes to learn those things so that you can also benefit from the amazing abilities these techniques offer, the Sleight of Mouth and the hypnosis and the NLP, and perhaps to do what I think is a sort of sign of levels of mastery, which is to be able to blend them, to be able to do Sleight of Mouth with Ericksonian hypnosis, with NLP, or NLP with hypnosis, kind of to be able to blend them into a place where it's not just NLP or just hypnosis. It's not just Sleight of Mouth. It's a coaching conversation that has lots of good, positive outcomes in their achievement. So yeah, that's the point for me doing this. Yes, it is marketing. And yes, I hope that you do. Feel free to send me a comment or question. I'm really good at questions or answering them. I'm probably good at asking them too, I guess. I don't know. It's a good question. But anyway, so I don't know much to talk about. So yeah, we're gonna be doing this the next few days. Tomorrow I'm gonna be talking mostly about sleight of mouth. Tomorrow's kind of sleight of mouth day. And it's actually funny. I just got a comment that said, "What are you doing the first time?" so, serendipity, good timing. The first day I'm going to be talking about sleight of mouth. Those of you who know sleight of mouth, I don't need to explain it, but for those of you who don't, let me explain briefly that sleight of mouth is ironically an advanced NLP skill. It was always taught that way. It was taught in the master practitioner trainings of various NLP trainers like Robert Dilts, who invented it. So it's pretty well understood that you needed to know the basics, the practitioner level training of NLP, like the rapport skills and the meta model and all the kind of, basic NLP things, anchoring, reframing, and the practitioner level stuff. And then when you get to the master practitioner level, you'd start learning deeper things like the meta programs, et cetera. And sleight of mouth was taught at that level, at the master practitioner level. So why might you think, am I teaching it to people who don't know it at all? I've taught sleight of mouth to thousands of people, literally thousands of people. The first class of people that I ever taught sleight of mouth to were salespeople for the Tony Robbins organization. I was a master trainer for Tony Robbins. I'd taken my master practitioner training from Robert Dilts and his partner at the time, Todd Epstein, and learned sleight of mouth from the horse's mouth, as it were, since Robert Dilts invented it. And I came back to New York. I was a trainer for Tony, and all the other, trainers, people that were there said, "Well, what is it? What is it? We want to improve our sales abilities," because that's what we largely do. The sort of sales model that Tony had back then was that people who took his trainings, people who took like the firewalk, et cetera, would then tell their friends and family about it and get their friends and family to come to the next firewalk, or what he called the mind revolution back in the 80s. It later became the Unlimited Power Weekend, probably a better name, and certainly better when it came to marketing and branding his Unlimited Power book. So the Unlimited Power Weekend. At any rate, the idea was that he didn't employ professional salespeople. He had people who were doing sales with their friends and family. So they needed training. They didn't know anything about it. So they were basically the sales team for Robbins Research. So I taught them sleight of mouth because it is about overcoming objections. Sleight of mouth is verbally changing somebody's belief system. Let me say that again. Sleight of mouth is about verbally or conversationally changing or persuading a person to a different belief system from where they already originally started. So in sales, that's called overcoming objections. So for instance, if I was trying to sell you on a firewalk experience and you said, "Oh, well, I don't really want to do that. There's no need to learn about how to walk across hot burning coals barefoot. I'm never, ever going to do that. Why would I want to spend money to learn how to walk on coals?" I'd say, "I can appreciate," right? So then I start to reframe it. I can appreciate that you'll never walk on hot coals, for fun at a picnic. That's not what it's about. What it's about is using your brain, your mind, your way of thinking to overcome limiting belief systems. Because in the past, we've all believed that fire is going to burn us. You touch a hot stove, you get burned. Now we're going to say, hey, if you change the way you're thinking, change your physiology, use the skills of NLP, you can walk across hot burning coals, touch a hot stove. You can do anything you want and succeed where you thought you couldn't in the past. Because ultimately it is about succeeding in life and changing your beliefs in order to do that. So it's about overcoming objections. Now, I didn't use a lot of sleight of mouth in that example just there. I was just winging it. But that's the kind of thing that we want to do. We want to overcome an objection. An objection is simply a belief, right? I believe it's something I'm not going to use in real life. It's something that's too expensive. They have beliefs about the product or service that you're trying to sell. So a salesperson will alter those beliefs and overcome that objection. So I taught sleight of mouth first to salespeople who did know something about NLP, but not a lot. But over the years, I've taught it to thousands of salespeople who literally don't even know what NLP stands for. So then the question is, if NLP is a master practitioner level of NLP skills, how and why can I teach it to people who don't know anything about NLP? And that is very simple, because the structure of Sleight of Mouth doesn't require the anchoring and the reframing and the meta model, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't require that at all. It just requires that you understand the structure of a belief and the process about reframing it to get to someplace else. So we'll be talking most about that on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're going to have the official webinar. And that, just saying that, makes me a little nervous. But that's where I do the like marketing thing, you know, so it's not informal, it's formal, right? It's the webinar where I teach you all this stuff. And I'm, you know, you got to do that sales stuff. And some people are really good at that. Some people are really good at, you can watch some of these webinars and be like, wow, oh man, that woman is good at this, or that guy is really, you know, you can really appreciate these people are skilled, or they're been practicing and have been coached in it, or they're reading from a teleprompter or something. I don't do that. So yeah, it's nerve-wracking. But on Wednesday, I'll be talking about all three of these things: Sleight of Mouth, NLP, and hypnosis, and how they come together in this offering that I'll be offering called the Essential Coaching Skills Platform and Essential Coaching Skills membership site. So that's on Wednesday. Everything you need to know about the membership is coming on Wednesday. Really good. You should see it. It's going to be great. Really, trust me. I'm being coached and practicing. I've got a teleprompter. Well, not really, but it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And then Thursday, we'll talk more about specifically how we approach NLP, or neuro linguistic programming, here at the Essential Coaching Skills. And so same sort of thing about that we did on Tuesday about Sleight of Mouth, we'll do focusing on the essential NLP skills. NLP, just so you know, has been around a long time. And I'll talk more about this on Thursday of this week about NLP. But it's been around a long time now, since the 70s. That's a long time ago at this point in human history. It's like 50 some odd years ago that NLP came to be a thing. And so it's altered a bit in its change, in its way that it is, also in the way that it's taught. It used to be taught in the old days in like a 28-day training, straight and like intense. And I think that was just the practitioner level. And then they did it all again for master practitioner. So it was like intense training. It has shortened considerably over the years to a certification course could be done in 14 days, lots of places, maybe 15 or 20, but you know, less than 28. And then those are the really good trainings. And then there's also trainings that are like done in 9 days, which, you know, frankly, you get what you pay for. And 9-day trainings are not as good as a 14-day training, generally speaking. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe if it's like, you know, Richard Bandler teaching it, maybe that's going to be different. But frankly, I don't think so. But there's also people that do it in like 4 days or 5 days. And of course, they are less good. Just they are. Because it's like learning the piano. I can teach you in 4 days how to play the piano. It's like, yeah, I can. You're not going to be very good at it, though, after 4 days. So we try to make it so it's something that you can get good at. We teach it over, like all these courses, 4 months. It's a 4-month cohort where we meet every week and have additional office hours so that you can ask questions, et cetera. But you're really practicing these skills. And we hone it down to the skills that I have found that over the years for coaching, not necessarily to be like an NLP therapist or something like that, but for coaching purposes, what are the essential skills of NLP that really, I think, you kind of need to know to be an effective coach? They're essential, you might say. So we'll talk about those on Thursday. And then Friday, we're going to talk about neo-Ericksonian hypnosis and how that ties in to the bunch. Now, of course, it's pretty true, just like with NLP, that you could spend a long time, a lifetime probably, studying the skills of NLP. Studying Ericksonian hypnosis is like, it's a lot to study. It's also a tall order to get good at. It is not, however, impossible. Those are skills that you can learn. And I've learned from people like Robert Dilts, no, I'm sorry, that's NLP, from Stephen Gilligan, from Bill O'Hanlon, various people that were like first generation, if you will, Ericksonians who studied with Milton Erickson, developed their own way of doing Ericksonian hypnosis, and then they taught, the likes of me. And so I've learned from them. But it's interesting to me that everybody who teaches Ericksonian hypnosis has a slightly different viewpoint of what it is. They look at it from different perspectives. So, got to me to be thinking after a while, it's like, well, what is Ericksonian hypnosis if there's all these different viewpoints about it? So Erickson never taught Ericksonian hypnosis. He never certified anybody. He didn't even certify Jeffrey Zeig as an Ericksonian hypnotherapist or hypnotist or anything, right? He didn't do it. So what is it? Who said it is what it is? To top it off, I also studied a lot of NLP, and Richard Bandler had worked with Erickson, studied Erickson, modeled Erickson in his telling of it. And so much of my viewpoint is not only colored from first generation Ericksonians, but it's also from the Bandler Grinder school of NLP, looking at Ericksonian from that viewpoint. And I also studied with Dave Dobson. I studied not Ericksonian hypnosis, but other than conscious communication with Dave Dobson, who was a fantastic, amazingly great hypnotherapist, very similar to Erickson. Met Erickson once, but didn't study with Erickson. So his work is not Ericksonian hypnosis, but it's so very, very similar. And it so deeply informs, I believe, the understanding of what's going on with Ericksonian hypnosis that I teach what I learned from Dave in the classes that I call neo-Ericksonian hypnosis, new Ericksonian hypnosis. And I think that is only fair, and I think it is more accurate, because I never met Erickson. I met his wife, I met his daughter, I've been to the house, but I never met him. He was long gone at the time I showed up on the doorstep. He had passed on in 1980. I didn't even ever hear his name till I was 85, from Tony Robbins. So I never met Milton Erickson. I can't honestly call what I do Ericksonian hypnosis, but neo-Ericksonian seems fair. So that's what we'll be doing Monday through Friday of this week. Now, I'm going to ask my colleague, Michelle Pop, to pop in to have a word, because I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to bring her in. So maybe she can, so she's standing by. She's in the virtual green room here. So I will open the door to the green room and let her join us on the stage, as it were, here at StreamYard. Here we go. It says literally add to stage. So that's what we're doing. There she is.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
Oh my God. What do you have in the background of your...
As my thumb disappears, you can tell it's a virtual background. I have a piano. I don't want to show you up with my grand piano here, but
Oh.
The Barry saxophone didn't fit.
Let's walk over to our various pianos and see which one sounds better, shall we?
My real one is upstairs. It's just a keyboard, though.
Well, that is an impressive background you got there. That's
Thank
new.
you.
I haven't seen that one before. That looks really nice.
It's StreamYard. Yeah, we'll give them some credit.
This is a StreamYard background?
It is, indeed.
You mean I could have that same background?
You could switch from your piano to this, and then people would be like, why are you in the same room, the two of you?
I want to do that. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now, but I honestly didn't know that StreamYard had, but I knew that you could do a virtual background. I didn't know they offered virtual backgrounds like that one. That's cool.
We learned some new tech on almost every call with Doug, even in our Zoom lives. So
Wow.
For those who feel like they don't know their tech too well, you learn it as you go.
You're very, very kind. So Michelle, so you've been through these courses. You've been through Sleight of Mouth. Mm-hmm. You've been through Ericksonian hypnosis or neo-Ericksonian hypnosis, and you've been through the NLP classes.
Yep.
You've done them all. So, and the thing we're doing this week, we are calling, when I say we, I mean, you are part of this. You're helping me doing a lot of the marketing for this thing. We're calling Beyond Techniques, right?
Yes. And
I mean,
people might wonder why. Why
yeah,
would we think
I was
beyond
thinking
that?
that because, you know, we're teaching techniques. We're teaching the techniques of sleight of mouth. We're teaching
Mhm.
techniques of Ericksonian hypnosis. We're teaching techniques.
Yeah,
So let's talk about. I mean, I have my opinions, and you have your opinions. Let's
I
chat
do.
about
I
beyond techniques. Go ahead.
I think people should know that I've taken these classes from more than one teacher. Okay, so actually all three
What?
NLP and
What?
indeed, and sleight of mouth and not neo Ericksonian, but hypnosis I've had in other places, and so one multiple teachers actually. One of them was a certification course, and one was not for certification. But the thing is that they get to the certification thing, and they're like, "Here's the manual. This isn't the manual. This is just a clipboard. Read this, and I'll pass you." And that's cool. It's nice to know that I'm going to pass. Who doesn't want to pass? But it doesn't necessarily give someone the confidence that I can go out in the world and say to someone, "Hey, lay on my couch behind me over here. Ignore that piano for a minute, and I'm going to put you in hypnosis. Or come over here, and we're going to stand here, and we're going to do this NLP technique." Or if you haven't practiced it, even though you might pass a class, sleight of mouth, you get in the moment and all the emotions rise up, and that little bit of anxiety, that little butterfly in your stomach, all of the patterns can just disappear. And so
Hmm.
with Doug, I find that there's this balance in the way that you teach of learning the skills. And also because it's a live class, there's a lot of practice. So Doug's encouraging practice groups outside of class with other people who are also working on these skills. And some have taken multiple courses and just keep going to keep it fresh, to people who are brand new. And it's actually really helpful as someone who's done it for a while to be with somebody brand new, because it makes you deepen your skill. You have to kind of question a little bit, like, why is it this way? How do I know that that's what it is? And so Doug's class is a blend of skill and practice and flexibility, because as you've got all three of these tools, you've got Neo Ericksonian, which is a lot of conversational and storytelling based hypnosis that you can bring into sleight of mouth, and you can bring that into your NLP when you're future pacing someone, or if you're doing a timeline process and moving them backward, you can bring in those conversational things, and you can reframe in the middle of that, just slip that sleight of mouth in there. So there's this huge flexibility that comes, and then just the confidence that comes with practice. So there's this three-way cycle that just kind of feeds on itself as you practice and get good at these. And what I found when I paid, I think it was around $2,500 for the NLP certification course. And it was an online, watch these videos, and then when you're ready, we'll have you record yourself with somebody doing these, reading the script. And so there wasn't a lot of live practice, and there wasn't a lot of confidence. And just because I can do it once with my book, my script in front of me, doesn't mean that I feel confident to go and take a class or take on a client and have someone pay me. I wouldn't personally feel comfortable with somebody and be like, "Come on in. I'm going to charge you I don't know, anywhere from 75 to 100, 115 hours, pretty standard for coaching. And I'm just going to read the script as we walk through this thing." It just doesn't feel like the same confidence, or I wonder what technique I should do with you. And there might be moments of that in your coaching, but when you're not sure what to go to because you haven't practiced it, it can be very intimidating. So with Doug, there's all of these different skills you can go to. So you've got, if it's a psychosomatic thing, you've got your NLP to get someone in a particular state, or do timeline work to change something in the past or how they feel about something in the past. And then you've got your sleight of mouth to work on beliefs, and your NLP for something that's subconscious that's holding them back. Like I shared with Doug that last summer I was on vacation and I did hypnosis with a relative. Not the easiest thing to do, to always work with family, in terms of the trust and the relationship that you have, because they can have their own biases. But this particular one was someone who felt that the way to be in a relationship was to gain weight. And so her weight loss was she could lose weight when she's single, but then she would gain weight when she was in a relationship. And so obviously for health reasons, she doesn't want to carry extra weight. And so we worked on that belief that it's safe to be your ideal weight, even in a relationship with somebody. And that was very successful. But part of that was using sleight of mouth. Isn't it more important to know that you're, show that you're committed by your actions than by your weight, things like that, that you can slide in another skill and kind of blend these together. So that's kind of my experience. Do you have any thoughts on that, Doug?
Well, I just want to say, yeah, thank you for that, Michelle. That was a really nice thing that you just shared with us. Interestingly, I never had an NLP training like that you described, where it was all online, or get the script and now you know how to do NLP, read this manual and I'll certify you. I'm very fortunate that I never did that. I think the shortest NLP certification course I ever did, and I did several just out of the way, it was 14 days. I don't think anybody back then taught it less than that. Taught it differently, certainly. Tad James and Whitewood Small taught it differently than Tony Robbins did, and different than Robert Dilts did, different than Greg Gibson did. But nevertheless, people recognize that this is a communication skill. This is about two people interacting to be able to read their, body language, or their other than conscious communication, as Dave would say, to be able to, notice it and read it and respond to it. And critical stuff you're not going to get from any book. You're not going to really very much get from a tape. You can get it pretty well from interactive Zoom calls, which is what we do here. Which of course probably isn't as good as real life, being in the same room with another person, because it's harder perhaps to pick up on their breathing or much of their body language. You're just seeing the front view, from here up kind of thing, basically the front view. There's other things you might not see how fast their foot is tapping, if you're not in the same room with them. Maybe you can hear that as I demonstrate. But can you hear that?
Yes, actually.
Right. So, but it's the next best thing. And gosh, you don't have to travel from California to New York to take the seminar. You don't have to spend hotel rooms. And, you talked about the cost of doing your thing. It's expensive sometimes to train. If you've got to fly to some distant city, if you wanted to stay in a hotel room in New York City right now, that's damn expensive. Not to mention the meals that you'd have out, et cetera. So it's very good to be able to do these, Zoom seminars like this. It may not be as good as live, but it's a hell of a lot better than watching a video or, reading a script or something like that.
Yeah.
So I've noticed, by the way, that some people are asking or putting comments in the thing, and that's really nice. Somebody just wrote, about Sleight of Mouth, is there a short, easy way to learn to practically use them, memorize them, and or naturally, unconsciously use them beyond mentally? Beyond mentally, no. Mentally, it's mental. You got to use your mental. But the way we do Sleight of Mouth in the class, I don't know if you all are familiar. Where's my book? With my book, Sleight of Mouth, the User's Guide to Sleight of Mouth. But the reason I wrote this book is because it has in it, hold on, let me just, I'm not prepared for this thing. Okay, here it is.
Sleight of Mouth Day is tomorrow. You're fine.
This is dress rehearsal. Okay, here it is. I got it. Go away. Oh.
Are you looking for the whiteboard?
No. I'm looking for the manual, the PDF manual. This comes as a PDF with the book. The book that I sell commercially has got in it some of these same charts that I learned originally from Robert Dilts. Sleight of Mouth has these, I call them icon representational charts. So in this chart, the belief, the cause-effect belief, or the complex equivalence belief goes in the middle, and all the different Sleight of Mouth patterns are represented in different icons on this chart. And every time you do Sleight of Mouth with different beliefs, you put them in the same kind of formatting. So it's always going to be the same. So you get this spatial anchoring of where the different beliefs are. And the icons, of course, it's a visual anchoring of that. Looks like an arrow. It looks like an arrow going the other direction. This one looks like the 10 Commandments, sort of stuff. So you get them memorized in a way. that way. So it becomes perhaps less mental, more of a automatic response, exactly where these things are on that chart. So we really hone in those skills, Martina. So it's easier, but it's not easy.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think
Yeah, go.
how do you practically use them is you literally use them. You use them consistently. So like I don't wait till I'm in a practice session with Doug or a classmate, and I don't wait until I'm with a client, to use these. It's something that I use. I use it parenting with my daughter. My daughter has started using them back at me, so now I have to get that much better. Mom, isn't it more important that I get these things done than that I go to bed early? No, you need to,
That's
it's
great.
more important you get the most sleep. Otherwise, the consequence is that you're going to be tired for school, and I'm going to be mad at you because you're cranky, and you're going to be grounded and lose TV privileges.
Let me just say something about that, Michelle. You're going to become the best sleight of mouther ever in order to stay one step ahead of your daughter.
Oh, she's very good. She's good.
I know, I'm sure she is, but she's also going to keep you on your toes. You're going to be a good parent. You're going to have to be like the best sleight of mouther in Canada.
Right. Oh, so you practice using them by using them. And then Doug has the spatial anchoring. And the other thing that we've started doing in class is my dogs are going crazy here. They're very excited because I'm excited. We have flashcards. Doug's working on some flashcards. It's something that I had done for a while and people loved. And so he's building out some flashcards with the different patterns on them. And so then what I would do sometimes practice is take a belief, whatever the belief is. And in the class, he teaches how to figure out exactly the structure of a belief and get what precisely that means to the other person, so that we're not mind reading and we're not putting our own stuff in there. And then I would flip through every single card, or if you're writing it, he'll have, sometimes the homework assignment is to write each pattern and to write it in the little squares like he just showed on the graph, the iconic graph of which one goes where. And so by practicing them, but knowing that you're practicing intention, knowing you're practicing consequence, hierarchy of criteria, knowing which one you're practicing, that's probably the easiest and best way, is to just practice with one belief so that you're not changing the belief all the time, and know how many different ways we can move into this. And then beyond that, to practice then chaining multiple ones together. So isn't this more important? And have you also considered this thing over here? And so that's where.
So let me just stop you there, Michelle. We'll talk more about this tomorrow.
Okay.
I do appreciate your enthusiasm. That was a very excellent answer. It really was.
Thank you.
Excellent answer. And yeah, we will be talking about. Then there are some other methods we use as well. And we haven't finished the flashcards yet, Michelle. Don't go promising them flashcards.
I just said that you're working on them, which is true.
Which is true. That's true. I'm working on them with Robert Deltz. It will be released sometime in 2025. Someone has also, I hope that answers your question about Sleight of Mouth, Martina. Lucid daydreaming, I hope it's okay that I say that out loud, is also asked if I could comment on Transform Destiny's Michael Stevenson and his methodology. I will be honest, I don't know what that is. Michelle, do you know Michael Stevenson?
I do know him, but I don't think it's something we need to answer.
Okay. So you can email me. I mean, I literally don't know. I'm happy to.
I think it's a matter of how a person prefers to learn.
Right.
To me, that's the biggest difference. So it's not about what is his methodology. It's what's the best way for me to learn.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. She said fair. Thank you. Good. So yeah, there's a lot of different things. That's one of the things that's, I think, going to be important about these next few days is I don't like the I always say this. I don't like a lot of things. I don't like people who need to somehow impress others at how smart they are. To say I'm gonna do NLP on you. I had this guy once. I was teaching back in the 1980s when I first started. The same room that I taught that first Sleight of Mouth class in was a seminar space within my office. for Robbins Research. It became Doug O'Brien and Associates offices at Riverside in New York City. Somebody rented the space for me, was doing an NLP training. And I was, coming in out of the office. And there was a person who was kind of making some trouble, separate from anything else. Just someone we all knew at that time was just being a little difficult, let's just say. And the guy who was teaching this NLP seminar from the front of the room said, "Doug, you want me to fix him for you?" I'm going like, very interesting question. And it implied that he could, with a snap of his fingers or, with a 5-minute process or whatever, fix somebody. And I just, A, don't think that's the way that it works. And B, it wouldn't be ethical if it was to do it. I don't like that kind of thing where I'm such a great trainer. I will install in you all this stuff that you're going to do. And I'm just going to tell you stories. You can just go into trance. I'll see you in a couple of days. When you come out of trance, you'll know everything there is to know. I just like to be human. I just like to be you and me learning shit together, learning stuff together. I know a lot. I've been doing this since the 80s. It's been my full-time job since 1990 to do therapies, if you will, NLP therapies. We now call them coaching, but I've been doing it full-time since 1990, teaching seminars around the globe, doing this sort of thing. I'm good at it, and I can help you learn this stuff. And I feel like I've taken I don't want to just say bullshit over and over again, but most of the extra stuff that you don't need out of the trainings and pared it down to what is essential. These are essential coaching skills, not all of them necessarily, but the essential ones, right? So you can also, the way I like to teach it overall is so that it lets you know as the student that, it's you. I could teach piano, right? I have a piano over there. Let me go back to full screen so you can see it there. Does that mean that's you?
No.
Hi, Michelle. Come on. So there's my piano. That's a real piano. So when I've taught piano lessons in the past, it used to be my profession. I was a professional musician, and I spent a lot of time performing, but also teaching, mostly kids, how to play. Adults as well, but mostly kids. It was not the kind of thing that's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and show you how it goes, and now I'm not going to just sit down and play the Beethoven sonata and say, okay, that's the Beethoven sonata. Now you know how to do it. See you next time. It's like, no, it's to work with them and to, elicit from the student and get through step by step, how they do it, how they become able to play the Beethoven, and my work isn't done until they can, right? So it's like that. We're working on these and getting these skills into our bones, so that Sleight of Mouth becomes kind of automatic, and where those skills are automatically, those patterns are automatically, where somebody needs to do some hypnosis, you say, that's right. And you can begin to relax now. And so, just know how to do hypnosis with somebody. I used to work at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, where I did pre-surgical hypnosis for patients prior to their surgery for heart transplants, heart bypass surgeries, whatever it was, pre-surgical hypnosis. And occasionally, I would be asked to visit said patient in the IC room post-surgery, in the intensive care unit post-surgery. If you've ever been in an intensive care unit, they are intense. They are places of intensive care. They're like Grand Central Station. They are not relaxing places, They're not relaxing places. It's really literally, the nurses' station was around, I'm sure not all ICUs are like this. The one I was working in, the nurses' station was a round island in the middle of a room that was a round room when all these different beds were in a circle around this thing. So they could get really easy access to any bed at any time. And there was no separation. There were curtains separating the different, spaces where the different patients were, but that's it. That's the curtain. So noises everywhere. There are beepings, machines of keeping people alive and stuff like that. And sometimes the patient I was working with was, well, usually always hooked up to one of those machines where they're, sometimes they're intubated, which means they couldn't breathe on their own. They're barely conscious. They're definitely in a trance, because usually if a person is being intubated, they're going to be sedated as well, but at least not fully sedated. But it's kind of situation where you can't say, okay, now you can listen to the tinkly music and smell the incense burning and enjoy the soft lights and relax comfortably in this comfortable room. It's like, no, you don't got that, right? So you have to be able to use what you got. And the kind of pacing and leading Ericksonian induction is perfect for such a circumstance. But you have to be able to be flexible, right? So that's really what it is ultimately about, is having the flexibility and the ability to go from one skill to another skill depending on what the client needs at the time.
Yeah.
So
important. So important to be able to adjust your approach.
Yeah. So if anybody else have questions, you can do it whether you're on Facebook. Some of these questions are coming in from Facebook, I think. Some of them are coming in from YouTube. So wherever it is that you're watching this, feel free. Hey, Mac. Hey, Jerry. What's going on, man? So I'm seeing some familiar names here. Nice. But feel free to ask questions. I love questions. Even if I can't answer them, I love them. Give me something to talk about in the meantime. So St. Patrick's Day, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I grew up outside Chicago, and so every St. Patrick's Day I think about Chicago, because the Plumbers Union dyes the river around the city green.
Yep. So I'm wearing a green shirt. I don't know if you can tell this is green on your cameras. This is green.
I'm using a green screen. Does that count?
That's a green shoes. These are my house shoes. I'd never show these on camera. This is off. This is off the Zoom screen. My green.
You're behind the scenes when Doug shares his shoes.
Hand painted, just for the record. These used to be white and now they're green. It's a long story. I won't bore you with that, but they are hand painted by myself. Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. Interesting thing about the Chicago River, you know that they actually changed the direction of the flow of that river, right?
No, I did not.
It used to flow, let me see. It flows out from the Chicago River, from Lake Michigan now, right?
I actually couldn't tell you. It's been a hot minute, and I live in Aurora.
Well, whichever way that it used to flow, it now flows the other direction. I think it used to flow into Lake Michigan, now it flows out from Lake Michigan. And the reason that's important is because they used it for sewage and for drinking water. So I think they used Lake Michigan for drinking water and the river for sewage. But of course, if it flowed into Lake Michigan, then they kind of got compromised. So they changed the direction of the river to flow, I think, down to Ohio or something. Thank you, Chicago. But it helped their drinking water immensely. It's quite a little amazing feat of engineering to reverse the flow of a river. But they did so. Yeah. Right. So somebody asked a question. Let's say, Lucid David Jr., thank you for asking so many questions. What would be a situation where you might find mapping across to be a superior choice of technique to a switch pattern and vice versa? Wow. That's a very specific question.
It is.
Wow. I would wager that many people on the call don't have a clue what either of those two terms are.
I think that's a good wager. I wouldn't bet against it.
So, yeah, so I will ask it. I will answer it because you asked it. I will answer it relatively briefly without going into great detail. So mapping across, just for those of you who don't know, is a NLP process. I think Richard Bandler came up with it. And it's a very valuable exercise. I definitely teach it in my essential coaching skills, although I don't use it very often as a process with a client, but I do teach it in the essential coaching skills just so people have an appreciation that we do this in our brains. We have modalities. So in NLP, we've got 5 we as human beings have 5 modalities. We see things, right? Visual, we see things. We have auditory, we hear things. We have kinesthetic, we feel things. We have olfactory and gustatory, we smell things and we taste things. So there's 5 senses. Each of those senses have what we call an NLP submodality. So each of those modalities have submodalities. In other words, let's say visual, we have brightness. So we could turn up the brightness of our pictures, make it a very bright picture. Or we could do this. We could have a closer up picture, right? So that changes the submodalities. And now it's a close up, right? I could make it just me. I think there's a way to do that. Oh, no, it's Michelle. Damn, I did it again. But I could do that. And then I think there's a way to, I don't know if there's a way to make that full picture either. No, that's Michelle again. I don't know what to do. But suffice to say, and spatial location is another submodality. So if I move this one over here, suddenly it's different. And so submodalities are different ways of doing the visual. So if the visual suddenly went black and white, and if it suddenly became a still picture, it's very different than a moving picture that's in color. All right. So people, as an example, who have phobias of a mouse or something, would probably you'd probably find that if they represent a mouse in their brain, if they think about a mouse, that picture in their brain is going to probably be a really big picture. And see this mouse coming at them, and it's going to be in color, and it's going to be like the mouse will have these, fangs in it and blood dripping off them. It'll be scary mice things, or whatever a person is. So they're the way they're picturing this, the submodalities of the visual is probably very large and in color and moving. If you have that same person change that picture to small and far away and black and white and still framed, they're going to have a very different response to that. Right? So that's one of the things we do in NLP is to help change the submodalities. So mapping across is a process where you take one image and their full list of the submodalities that they're seeing of this one experience. Maybe it's something that they believe to be true. I really believe this is a true thing. So how do you see it? How do you hear it? How do you feel it? How do you taste it? How do you touch it? What are the submodalities? Full listing for that thing I believe. And then you might do the same elicitation for a full listing of submodalities, something they don't believe. Then you can map them across. You can move one over to the other. If it's something I believe but I don't want to believe anymore, I'm going to move it across so it matches the submodalities of the thing across. So that's one way you can do the mapping across exercise in NLP. A swish pattern. It's funny as I say this because I was interviewing Damon Cart the other day about, I've mentioned this already, the self-concept model. But Damon was very close to Steve Andreas. And Steve Andreas I met a few times, and I know his family very well. His wife and his sister-in-law and Mark are all friends of mine. And Steve was as well. But Steve was a cantankerous fella. He had a right way and a wrong way in his belief systems about the way things are supposed to be. And generally speaking, everyone else was doing it the wrong way. He was one of the few that did it the right way. And he had a very strong opinion about the way people do swish patterns. I'm just saying that because if I say this out loud, it's probably get some people are going to go, that's not the way Steve taught it, or that's not the way it's supposed to be, because there's lots of different ways of doing swish patterns. So a way, not necessarily the way or the right way, but a way of doing a swish pattern is to have it be kind of like a visual anchor swap. So for instance, you might say, if I want to quit smoking, let's say I might take a movie of myself as a smoker where I go into situations where I have had cigarettes in the past. So maybe I make a movie of myself walking into a bar. This doesn't really follow anymore because people don't smoke in bars. Back when I was a kid, we used to smoke in bars. When I was a child, we used to smoke in bars. Right after we got out of the mines, we'd do our shift in the mines, then we'd come up and have a drink in the bar and have a good cigarette or two. And of course, spoke with an Irish accent because it's St. Patrick's Day. But seriously now, folks, yeah, let's just go with it, okay? So imagine I'm walking into a bar and I'm going to have a cigarette, and I sit down and the bartender gives me my beer, and I see a picture of myself reaching for the beer. So it's a picture, associated picture. So I'm seeing it through my own eyes. So you see my hand reaching out for the beer. And so this picture of my hand reaching for the beer is a trigger for my saying, oh, beer, have a cigarette. Now that I have a beer, it's time to light up, right? So that's the trigger for the action. So the trigger for the action, I make a still framed picture of the trigger before I get to the action. So then I take the still framed picture of myself reaching for the beer, which has in the past triggered wanting to have a cigarette. And I say, what would I want to be doing instead of the cigarette? So I'd say, I'd rather just take some nice deep breaths and appreciate having lungs, right? So I make a picture of myself doing that. Now this is a dissociated picture. So I see myself doing that. So it's dissociated. So instead of seeing it through my own eyes, I see myself. This second picture is seeing myself doing that. Then I switch this picture. So just very briefly, because we're running out of time, and if you want, I can talk more about this on Thursday. But I swish those pictures. I switch the pictures. So I go swish, and I do it repeatedly over and over again until anytime I'm in a bar situation and I see myself reaching for a beer, instead of my brain going, oh, it's time for a cigarette, my brain will go like, oh, it's time to take a deep breath and appreciate the fact that I have lungs. So I switch the response to the trigger. It's something similar to what Dave Dobson might have referred to as a subjective reversal, but it's not the same exactly, but it is similar results. So those are the things we're talking about here in this question. The question is, situation might you find mapping across to be a superior choice of technique to a swish pattern and vice versa? And I think that my short answer to that is I almost always would consider to be a swish pattern to be a superior technique to a mapping across. Mapping across is slow and arduous, takes a lot of time, and doesn't have a lot of bang for the buck, if you know what I mean. But the reasons I would use it from time to time is I would want to not only get a behavioral change, but also sort of teach a concept at the same time. Teach a concept about submodalities and about how they can do this again in the future. That very often we are the result of how we're doing our submodalities without knowing that we're doing our submodalities. I had a guy on my podcast a year ago, I think at this point, more, Lucas Dirks, I believe his name is, who is Danish person, who has taken, I don't know where he's from, but he's taken basically the idea of location when it comes to submodalities. So if I take a picture of something I believe to be true, and I believe it to be true, and I see it here, oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, that's true. And I take that picture and I move it over here, right? Suddenly that location feels totally different. I don't believe it anymore. Right? So location can have a huge impact. So Lucas Dirks has basically taken that one submodality change and created a whole psychotherapy around it. Right? So it's really important to know that we actually do this stuff. So sometimes I might, in fact, do a mapping across things so that people not only get the change, but they learn about submodalities and about their own ability to, change the way they're thinking and then change the results that they have. So hope that answered your question.
Can I add to that, Doug?
Oh yeah, please take it away. I'm going to take a break here.
Following that, the same person asked that they're curious how much overlap there is in general versus different NLP techniques. So the thing is, there is an infinite number probably of NLP techniques out there. And so I would say is a short answer, what Doug's class focuses on is more like the submodalities, getting really darn good at making and breaking anchors, like visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We practice doing that congruently. So you're slowing your voice for someone who's auditory or kinesthetic, but also switching the language from seeing language to feeling or hearing language. And so those things, those sorts of skills are going to transfer over to every single technique that you do. That's one big difference in Doug's classes. It's not about making sure that you swap these right, but making sure that you have the skills so that whether you're swapping or mapping across or doing timeline work or anything else, that you have the foundation to build that up. Kind of like, you're going to be able to learn a piano piece easier if you know how to play your scales and all of the keys, and you know your arpeggios and your thirds and your fourths and your fifths, and your fingers can just boom go there. Then it's going to be easier to learn a new piece.
Wow, that's good. That's a good metaphor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody else, but it certainly works for me. Appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to steal that.
Steal it.
Chances are good.
Piano teacher.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And it's interesting because, the blending of the three is ultimately what it's about. And, I teach the havening techniques. I teach other things as well. I think ultimately I'm always using NLP, even when I'm doing havening or something, and just think of it as like pure havening. I'm still hearing the language and responding to this subtle cues. I'm kind of always doing NLP, although I'm not formally doing NLP. So it is really kind of the blending of these things that makes it so that it feels like it's beyond technique. I think it's maybe like, I don't know, there's probably a better word for it than beyond techniques, but it's kind of a meta technique or something like that to the bunch, so that I'm using the appropriate technique at the time. But it is kind of like, if you become a chef, like there's a thing called the Culinary Institute. I took a class in knife skills. My wife got it for me. Ironically, the instructor cut himself really bad during the class. It was like Saturday Night Live skit. There was blood spurting. But he's okay. He's okay. It was just funny that he was the teacher of the knife skills class. He said, well, first of all, never do this. Never do what I just did. Lesson number one. But seriously now, folks, knife skills is one very important aspect of being a chef, but it is just a technique. It's just one small aspect of being a chef, right? There are lots of aspects that go into being a good chef. And ultimately, when a chef walks into a kitchen, he or she is not thinking about knife techniques, right? He or she is not thinking about, selection of the herbs or whatever. They're just thinking, what's for dinner? And they just, their creativity starts coming up, and the technique serves them in the creative process. Well, like a pianist, you practice scales for sure, but you don't think about those things when you're performing. You just think, what's the piece? What's the music I'm trying to get across? What's the mood I'm attempting to evoke and share with my audience?
Yeah.
Just happen.
And as a musician, I just say, like, when you have that, when you've got, my fingers know how to do a C scale, then while you're playing the C scale, you can go, how loud or soft do I want to be? How fast am I crescendoing, or whatever other things you want to add. The emotion and the other things come through when the technique is there. So once you've got that solid foundation, with NLP, with hypnosis, whatever, then that's where the flexibility comes. So much more flexibility comes, because then you're able to stop thinking about the technique. It's kind of like when we drive. I guess that's a great metaphor too.
That's a good metaphor too, yeah.
Like when I get in, I'm like one hand turning the key and one hand pulling my seatbelt at the same time. I don't have to think about it. Like the seatbelt just goes, like it's, and I can be thinking about which route do I want to take today, or what's the weather? Did the snow plows go through? Whatever it happens to be that I need to consider, so I can make better choices about different things, because I've got the basics down.
The joys of living in Northern Canada. Yes. Those of us down in Florida have no such.
You wish you were in Florida.
I don't wish I was in Florida, but many people do. I like it there, and that's good for them. Nevertheless, yes, it's a lovely spring day here in upstate New York. And by the way, I call it upstate New York because I'm north of New York City, but people from like upstate New York would scoff at the notion that I am upstate. I'm just a couple hours north of New York, as opposed to like Syracuse or Buffalo, where I'm from. Anyway, I digress once again. So yes, we are just about out of time for today. So this has been a great dress rehearsal. Please join us tomorrow for the even more about Sleight of Mouth, and Wednesday for the big webinar. I think we got our tech working pretty good here, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thursday for more about NLP per se, and Friday for all you ever wanted to know about Neo Erickson hypnosis. So join us, same time, same place, Monday through Friday, today through Friday. So thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you, Doug.
Michelle, thanks for being here. I really appreciate your made it a lot easier for me. I really do appreciate your presence.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
End stream.